Kinnick Stadium has been the graveyard for so many Big Ten dreams. But not today. The Indiana Hoosiers walked into Iowa City and came out with a gutsy 2015 win. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't easy, but it was the kind of victory that defines a season. Fernando Mendoza shook off the pressure and delivered a strike to Elijah Surratt, who turned a slant into a game-winning touchdown late in the fourth quarter. The defense held strong, and with one final snap, the Hoosiers closed the door on the Hawkeyes, now sitting at 5-0 and climbing in the rankings. Indiana keeps proving they belong in the Big Ten spotlight. Buckle up, because we've got a lot to break down from Iowa City. The Hoosier Tailgate starts now.
To the far, that's Surratt. Here's the snap. Here's the throw. Catches Murray. Down the middle of the field goes Surratt. Touchdown! And Indiana scores a 49-yard pass play and a break by Elijah Surratt that broke a tackle, and he turns it into the end zone.
Hello again, everybody. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith, and welcome to another edition of the Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. We appreciate you joining us tonight. After a huge win by the Indiana Hoosiers out at Iowa City as they come away with a 20-15 win over the Hawkeyes in what was a sloppy at times, and there's a lot of things that you could always tag onto that win on Saturday. Ugly being probably the better one to really clarify what really went on there. But as I said, a win is a win is a win, and you never apologize for that. And they accomplished what they needed to do, is go out and get a win for the first time since 2007. So Indiana by far, right now, things are going in their direction. They make, they say you make your own luck, and I think that was one of the big things in that regard to their performance there Saturday. We had talked about it extensively on Thursday night that Indiana could not get trapped into what Iowa wanted to do. And unfortunately, that's what Iowa was able to do, to kind of muddy it up, ugly it up, create a tight ball game, put themselves in the position in the fourth quarter to win, which they did. Field goal kicker misses that field goal, which I would have never thought he would have missed that field goal. But he did, and then Indiana came back and, Phil Parker, the defensive coordinator for Iowa, had lived by the blitz all day long, especially on third and down situations and long. And what they say is, if you live by the blitz, you must accept to die by the blitz. And that's exactly what happened on Saturday there in Iowa City, Iowa. Just a couple things here before we get rolling along, of course. Make sure you hit that like and comment and subscribe button, and also put the notification bell on so that you get notified when we go live, and you won't miss one of those at all. And if you are one that likes to listen via the podcast platforms, by all means, whether it be Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, if you could like that platform that you're listening on, as well as make a comment or a rating, that also greatly helps us on those platforms as well. And again, in our link bio on our Hoosier Tailgate X page, you'll have a opportunity to hit the Fanatics Hoosier Tailgate store with all the game day gear you can find there at Fanatics. And there are other affiliates associated with us here at the tailgate. Jackery, which is a solar battery, very, very good solar battery. Things if you need for a tailgate, you got something to plug in the power and get the TV running while you're sitting in the tailgate lot. But if you do happen to purchase something there, we will receive some type of commission back to us, which we roll back into the show to try to make this, as I said before, the number one spot to get everything you want to know about Indiana football, whether it's in season, recruiting, or off-season football-related subject matter. You'll find it here at the Hoosier Tailgate. But again, thanks for joining us here tonight. Again, the Hoosiers walked out of Kinnick Stadium with a hard-earned victory, and they come and prove themselves to 5-0. They climb in the poll, as we talked about, 9 and 8 respectively. Indiana, I think it was their 8th in the coaches poll, I think, and 9th in the AP poll is what I'm getting. We'll talk about that here in a second. But there's been some interesting comments and aspects of the AP poll now that people are starting to realize that the brand that you wear sometimes outweighs your record or your performance, as some teams have found out already. But again, like I said, when you win on the road, regardless of the score, regardless of how it may look, it doesn't matter. It's a win is a win is a win. And you celebrate those just as much as you celebrate the blowout win like you had a week prior against Illinois. You're never going to play every game perfect, pure and simple. You're going to have times like this team got tested, and they got tested, and they got tested on Saturday. And the one thing that came out of that for me was, while there may have been frustration on the headsets with coaches and stuff, trying to figure out what to do or why wasn't something working, or even the fans in attendance or those watching frustrations, the one thing that I noticed is these kids never let anything faze them. They were razor sharp focused on the task in hand and playing the next play. And I tell you, the gut check that they had in that ball game, it really showed. And, Coach Cignetti's always said this, when, you think you got a plan until you get punched in the nose, and then what happens? And when things aren't going well and you're scrapping for everything that you can get, be it offense or defense, and you take what you can get, those kids showed the resiliency of a group that for as short a period of time that they've been together, 2 years for a good nucleus of it, but there's so many other guys that are playing their first year. Pretty impressive that those kids were able to continue their focus. I think having a guy like Coogan on offense, as well as, of course, Aiden Fisher on defense, but Lewis Moore, happy for that kid. He gets the injunction stuff behind him now. Now I can focus on playing, and he's been playing pretty decently all year long, and he's been such a big help. But again, Indiana got the big win there on the road at Kinnick, the first time that they've been there for a W in a long, long time, as we said here lately. A couple things before we head on there. Hey, Michael, how you doing, my man? Appreciate you joining us tonight. Jason, again, says surprise on how much Iowa blitzed. Quite honestly, I wasn't. I think it was all situational, more so. It just seemed like it was all the time. That's kind of how it feels in those games. Sometimes you feel like, holy crap, they're blitzing every play. And the reality of it is they're not. It's situational. And I've been in those games and on the sideline, and you're reeling. You're trying to find something that works, and you got to stay calm. And like I always say, there has to be poise. There's got to be grace under pressure, and you can't let the other team see you blink, and that's the one thing when I was coaching quarterbacks and everything at that position, when things aren't going well and you're getting your know what knocked off, you've got to remain that beacon of light that you look at everybody in the eye like it's not phasing you. But again, such a great learning lesson for this team, and they passed it with flying colors. Yep, 5-0 for the Hoosiers. First time ever the Indiana Hoosiers have started back-to-back years 5-0. In Coach Cignetti's short-lived tenure of 2 years, he has done more in 2 than anyone probably has ever done at Indiana when it comes to winning and winning consistently. He's done that. That's one big thing that he's done. Todd, appreciate you coming. Let's see. Makes me wonder if he didn't want to disrespect Ferentz the way he bodied Bielema. Oops, I need to go back. Right back to the vanilla after the first drive for a touchdown. It was Lance post dive. Yeah, I don't know, Todd, there, if it was kind of vanilla in the sense that I think they were just searching for what was there. And I think the biggest question on Saturday was the lack of a change up in the second quarter. What were the adjustments? I don't think I necessarily saw that. But again, those games, like you say, the kids are tested in it. So are the coaches. And, it's easy when things work. You can call anything in the playback and it's like, okay, that's going to work. Because you just know the confidence that play's had. It's either already worked, just like against Illinois. Whatever they called was going to work. Saturday, that wasn't there. And you can be, as a play caller, and you've got a mindset and a mentality heading into a game like that, and you got what you need in front of you, and all of a sudden it's not working the way you thought it would. Those are the times you start, not panicking, but you're trying to find what can we go and hang our hat on. And that's the one thing that I've always said. You've got to be able to say, when what hits the fan, you're going to run this play because this is going to get you 5 yards, whatever that is. For me, when I was coaching and even when I was an assistant coach at Ball State, that play was always power. Block down, pull around, kick out, block down because you want to seal the gaps to the inside. And we knew how to run it and coach it against anything. And we thought we could always get 5 yards guaranteed on that. So, it gets in those environments like that, when it's loud and everything's kind of working against you, it's tough sometimes in that regard. But anyway, we'll talk more about that here in a second. Again, there was no presser today because Indiana is in the bye week and they do not have a Monday presser where Sig addresses the media after a game and he's had a chance to review everything on a Sunday or whatever. I wish they would, or have a later this week presser to address that, because you wait a full week to address it and you're already on to Oregon. And it kind of, I wish they would, is kind of what I'm saying. I wish they had a presser either today or Tuesday or whatever day that would work. So we'll see if something happens to address the media and questions that may have popped up over in the last 24 to 48 hours in that regard. But no presser today there in Beantown. And the one thing Saturday that did come to fruition was that the Hawkeyes were able to break the consecutive 300-yard rushing streak Indiana had for 4 previous straight games. They were able to break that. I don't think it was overly surprising. Indiana still had a pretty decent day on the ground against a very, very good rush defense, one of the tops in not only in the Big Ten heading into that game Saturday, but in the country. And they just, gave Indiana some fits at times. So it was one of those things that they didn't get what they probably would wanted to get in their term of their team goals of what they like to get as a benchmark. But at the same time, you take away the safety that Mendoza ran 20-some yards back and a couple other things in there. I think they would have had about 170 yards rushing on the day. And, to couple that with 233 through the air and stuff like that. So we'll talk a little bit about that here. And also first win at Kinnick, of course, since 2007. And that was a key win in terms of just getting over that mental hump, where you've not won a game at an institution on their campus for quite some time. And you go on there as a highly ranked team in the country. They are gearing up for you from A to Z. In theory, they had an extra day to prepare for Indiana because they played the previous Friday night. And it was their homecoming. So it was kind of like a perfect storm for them in that regard. And Indiana was able to weather that in that regard. But let's see, we got some other here. It seemed that they seem to forget about. Yeah, I do. I think there are some questions around that specifically when it comes to the tight ends involved in the passing game, especially Holden States, the kid that, transferred from Tennessee, had been at Notre Dame. He is a big, tall, lanky body. And I do think they need to find opportunities to really utilize his size on a Saturday in the passing game to put him in a position to be in a one-on-one scenario at times. So that may be something they focus and work on this week. I don't think they made too many of those, Jason, as we talked about earlier there. Once you put on tape that you have a struggle with something offensively, you're going to see it until you get it corrected. Now, the one thing, they blitzed us here and there and we had this and that. Well, here's the thing with blitz. You need to have an answer for it, number one. So Indiana will have a better answer for things. And I think Sig alluded to that by going to their 7-man protection. But number two, you get a couple plays on it, and that scares defensive coordinators enough that they back out of it because they don't want to give up the big play like Iowa did that cost them the ball game at the end of the day in that regard. So, yeah, definitely a great time for a bye week to come about. Well, here's the scenario on that situation. When you're in a victory formation and everyone knows you're going to take a knee, and the reality of it is there needs to be a simultaneous snap, maybe take a step or two back and then take a knee. The defense is not teeing off trying to get to the quarterback in that situation, because it's kind of, if you watch them, when they do, it kind of gets a little testy in there. But that was the scenario. And there's actually a rule that you can't delay doing the obvious when you're trying to run the clock out, which means take a knee. You have to have a simultaneous snap within a few seconds or so of taking a knee, or the official will blow the play dead. From the standpoint, he's trying to do two things. One, he's trying to keep control of the game, but at the same time, he's also trying to protect players, because the last thing you want to do is somebody coming off the edge, taking your quarterback's head off in a situation like that. So it's kind of one of those things. It's a catch-22. But at the end of the day, Indiana needs, again, you got to have a plan. You had, I know there was only so many seconds left in the ball game, and Iowa had 3 timeouts left. So it was kind of obvious there that you were going to have to, at least on the first down play, perhaps maybe even run a play just to take off more time, because the way it was doing it is that it was only taking about 2 to 3 seconds off, and then he was blowing it dead. So that is the scenario that they'll have to address this week as an off week and retool and refigure what the scenario is to address in that time period to make sure that they're all on the same page on what needs to be done there. Taking the safety as the last play, I think that was just Sig's like, I'm tired of this BS. I want to get out of here. And last thing I don't want to do is do something stupid, so take the safety. And the reality of it is all Mendoza had to do was kind of dance around, take off running laterally or whatever, and then get down, because there was only 3 seconds left in that one in the game. Or you take a drop back 3 steps and you throw it as high as and far as you can into the, out of bounds, in the direction of somebody, so it doesn't get thrown as, intentional grounding or something stupid like that. So again, all these things, they're going to have a chance to work on them this week, because that's the thing about bye weeks come to. You get a chance to heal up. You get a chance to take care of some bumps and bruises, because the guys are beat up a little bit. You get a chance to get some of your guys that haven't got a ton of reps, some reps, which is going to be critical, because a lot of these guys heading into this last half of the season are going to be needed, because it's inevitable that, you're going to have some bumps and bruises, and guys are going to may have to set out a game here because of it. So it gives you a chance to get your depth right. It gives you a chance to decide on whether you're redshirting somebody or you're going to take it off of them. So like, for instance, like Baldwin, here's the guys who he's already been injured for 3 or 4 weeks. Is it going to be worth burning a year now on him when you've got more situation rectified? So there's a key component there. What do you do with Baldwin? Do you redshirt him, or do you take the red shirt off of him? So those are some of the discussions that they'll have this week with all their players, as well as a full account offensively and defensively of self-scouting, because this is the time after 5 games, you got a pretty good data set to go over with a fine-tooth comb to see what you are doing and what you're putting on tape and things of that nature. So that all becomes a huge dynamic in that regard. So, that's the one thing. And then the other thing here as well is Mekhi Jackson did leave the program for whatever reason is not known. There was not anything overly said about it, whether it was a discipline thing, whether it was something outside the program, whether it was something with the young man that, he just didn't feel like he was, getting the repetitions that he wanted to get. And that's the other bad thing about the portal. Sometimes you think you're better than maybe what you are, and you jump in it. And, likely so, Indiana took a chance on him. I don't know what they ultimately end up giving him. But, he threw a lot of money out the window because his rev share situation stops immediately. His schooling situation stops immediately. So I don't know what that scenario will or will not be, and whether or not he'll, be able to get another year. Who knows? But it will not be at Indiana for that most part. So anyway, with that one, let's take a look here quickly. I wanted to get over to some of this. The AP coaches poll, again, that came out. Let's see here. There we go. This on Monday, as you can see there, with Indiana setting there at number 8 in the AP top 25. It's interesting. Penn State, as losing to Oregon, was their first loss, but everyone says, like, who have they beaten? They have beaten nobody. They've beaten Villanova, FIU, things of that nature, and they're still at 7th. That's a brand awareness thing. Same thing with Texas. They also have a loss, and kind of like Penn State, they haven't beaten anybody in that argument as well. And then you have guys like Texas Tech and Iowa State that's undefeated, or Vanderbilt undefeated, or Missouri undefeated, and they're behind teams that have one loss. And there's been a lot of uproar lately over the AP poll and its value in the discussion, because it's quite evident that people that are in the AP poll voting are not voting in a way that's appropriately objective, I would say. And we know that it's easier to sell a Penn State logo than it is a Golden V logo or a Iowa State logo when you think of all of it. And so there was a lot of talk this past week about the AP poll and its value in terms of the rankings and stuff like that, because of some of the teams that kind of should be higher in the national rankings than what they are. And it's good to see that everyone else is starting to recognize the discussions that we've been having for 2 years when it comes to the poll of the AP poll in that regard, and it being more about the brand you wear than the record you have. So, but Indiana, a nice little jump up to number 8. Overall, Ole Miss is the one that jumped significantly on the poll because of their win against LSU. Great win, but they jumped a lot in the poll. And then the coaches' top 10, as you see here, Indiana via the coaches' poll is at number 9. And again, Penn State and Texas, 2 one-loss teams, are ahead of Oklahoma and Indiana, and Georgia, who's a one-loss team. Even the coaches, sometimes you kind of scratch your head a little bit with all that. But again, these mean absolutely nothing when it comes to the importance of where you got to get to, and it doesn't start becoming more important until you get to about week 8 and 9, when they start releasing some of these early polls out of projecting where people could go or what's their seating. And right now it's kind of a catch-22 and all that in that regard. But let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, he can. Yeah, he can go into the portal. I don't know how many years of eligibility he has left, because I do believe he was a senior this year. So I'm not quite sure how his eligibility stacks up. And but I until we get more clarification on it, it's kind of suspicious to me that the program didn't make any announcement. I think they were questioned about him being removed from the roster, and then they disclosed the fact that he's no longer there. So, but anyway, it is what it is. And hey, one man's misfortune's another man's gain. So one of those young pups that were sitting behind him now get an opportunity perhaps to move up the depth chart and all that in that situation. So you can never underestimate that aspect of things. And then I did want to go over here. Let's see. Oh, I know what it was here. Let's kind of go back and look at some of the scores from the weekend. And again, not too much over the top in this regard, but Illinois, what a bounce back for them and their kids. Brett Bielema beating a top-ranked team in USC, a ranked opponent. They come out with a big win there in Champaign, 34-32. That bodes well for Indiana as well as a resume builder, because the team that they beat that was ranked in the top 10 at the time and got thoroughly thudded by Indiana, then goes and beats USC the next week, which is also a ranked opponent. And Illinois, of course, is still ranked. And they come away with a huge victory. Now, we talked about USC's misfortune of playing a game in their mindset that starts at would have been a 9 a.m. kickoff in their mind. So I don't necessarily think that's right to a degree. But again, you don't hold the keys to the broadcasting rights and what time people are going to put you on or not put you on. Rutgers in Minnesota, big win for PJ Fleck, 31-28. That one to me was a little bit surprising. Rutgers, I know, had hoped to be a team that, was going to be up there in the terms of the conference and such, but now they've lost back-to-back weekends. Iowa and Minnesota back-to-back. Those are tough ones to do. But the other, Indiana, of course, the big win, 20-15. UCLA loses again. Northwestern beats them 17-14. And that program right now is in complete and utter disarray and spiraling out of control quickly. And unfortunately for Tino, the grass wasn't greener. It may have been better in terms of the dollars and cents of it, but to go there for 1 year and unemployed the next is not necessarily a great thing. But he'll land on his feet somewhere. Big win for Northwestern. Ohio State took care of business out in Washington in a game that was a little closer than that final dictated there against the Huskies, 24-6, and then Oregon, of course, the overtime against Penn State. James Franklin again cannot beat a ranked opponent, a top 10 ranked opponent in his own backyard, and gutsy win by Oregon, who had a ton of yardage in that game. It was interesting to look at the statistics of that game. Oregon had somewhere in the neighborhood of over 400 yards of total offense, where Penn State was like, their total offense was maybe like a high 200s or low 300 yard game, but yet they got to overtime in that ball game. So it was an interesting thing to read the statistical data there, and it kind of, little odd that game was an overtime game based upon that. Let's see here. Any more questions? Yeah, I think they're going to question whether or not Bond is going to be somebody that they're going to continue with in terms of wasting a redshirt year. They've really got their top six when you really think about it, with Boyd slipping in there as a kind of a slot backup to Cooper in that regard. Hey, Jace, glad to hear from you back there in Arizona. Fernando to never know there in that regard. Hey, man, like I said, don't feel too bad with him because he's got a 2-year contract and he's going to get a lot of money to step out the door or help mitigate that damages that he'll get awarded for being fired under contract. But I'm sure he'll find somewhere to land his feet. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see him back at Indiana in a analysis role of some sort, because he's going to get paid by UCLA. Indiana can pay him like $30,000, and UCLA will have to make up the difference. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised in that scenario. We'll see what happens there. But he's a good ball coach, and like I said, he'll land on his feet somewhere and all that. Let's take a look at the final stats in this game from Saturday here quickly before we get going with some of the video in that regard of the game and stuff. But we had talked about the comparisons and really the offensive comparisons, and I can go back to it here. This is kind of how the two teams matched up in a lot of ways. Indiana, a complete, offensive juggernaut heading into this game this past Saturday, 64% on third downs and, having scored 24 points off of turnovers. Saturday they had 7 off that one turnover in the, where they scored on their second play of the game. But you can see they're pretty good, the offenses, when they looked at it, but then slipping over to the defense. This is where you knew that both offenses were going to have trouble, because you can see Iowa only giving up 60 yards rushing a game and only 173. And Indiana surpassed both of those numbers on the day and actually did pretty good on third downs again Saturday when you look at it. But, both teams were able to get pressure, in that regard. And then when you look at the final stats from Saturday, again, Indiana, 104 yards rushing, 92 for Iowa, 233 to 192 in the pass. So, again, Indiana outgains the opponent, ends up 40% on third downs and their conversions, which, if you said, well, Indiana finished with 40% on third downs, that's a pretty good day, even though they are in the 60s for the last couple of weeks. But at the same time, Iowa was 38%, and that was very good considering that Indiana's defense had only given up 19% on their third down conversions. Indiana and just wasn't very efficient on first and second down Saturday. That was one of them too. Again, they end up +1 on the day and 0 for 3 on fourth downs, where Iowa was 1 for 2 on first down. So again, the game within the game, the statistical data and things of that nature. Special teams played a vital role in this. Radovich did a great job nailing his opportunities for field goals, and their kicker missed one. We had, again, another block in special teams. The Isaiah Jones, who's playing like a beast right now, got his hands on one, and it's, again, those are the type of things that winning teams do when it comes to special teams. They find ways to have an impact in the game, and Indiana did that on Saturday. Well, hey, we're going to step aside here, take a quick break here from Academy Sports as well as BetMGM, but don't you leave. We'll be back here in a couple minutes on the Hoosier Tailgate on the Hoosier.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets. You ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors? Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location. Fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPNBY or text HOPN.
Thanks to Academy and BetMGM for their affiliation with the Hoosier Tailgate as well as On 3. Remember, the $1 first month, 50% off rest of the year is still available there at thehoosier.com. If you've not joined, get over there and get you a subscription for a year, and you'll also get the Athletic as part of that package, a subscription to the Athletic. And there's always things changing there at On 3 and what they're doing. You know, you get the Rivals stuff where recruiting, that was kind of their niche. And that'll keep you very well abreast of Indiana's recruiting, up-to-date information. And then, of course, with the Hoosier.com, the guys over there do a phenomenal job of covering everything from A to Z. They broke the story on Saturday that D'Angelo Pons was a very questionable to play, which he didn't, with I think it's some type of strain. I don't know the exact extent, but they were able to break that one before everyone as well. And so they do a great job with covering A to Z with basketball and football, getting, butting up against each other right now because we're slowly approaching the month of October, and basketball is going to be rocking and rolling. And I think tomorrow is their first an open practice. So I know that the guys are going to be over there watching that open practice, which I think is great because I don't think Indiana's basketball has had too many open practices through the decades. So it's good to see all that. See if there's anything here. Jones playing like he's broke. Yeah, he is. He's playing. I mean, the kid's on fire. I mean, I'm just tickled to death the way he's playing. And, that was such a huge – and Hardy's come along too as well. But that's a position that that was a big question mark on defense. You graduate Walker, who was going to be the next guy. You had Hardy, you had Isaiah Jones, who was coming back last year from, I think he had a fracture in his back or something. And who was going to step up? And quite frankly, Isaiah Jones has played terrific. He's got a high motor, and then, Hardy in there as well has been great, a great duo there. Kellen Wyatt, the kid they got from Maryland, he's still, he's flashing here again in the last couple of weeks. We'll talk about some of these players here in a second because I wanted to go back over, let's see here. Where was that? Yeah, here we go. Cover that up, dummy. Some of the statistics from Saturday with some of these guys, I think it's, good to kind of see, what was the data for a game that just from a viewing perspective was, sloppy. It was ugly. You didn't think they were, couldn't, pee a drop for that matter. It was tough yardage to get out there. But a kid, Fernando, even though he was 13 of 23 on the day, 233 yards. The one interception, it was more or less he got smashed and the ball sailed on him. But he didn't have 5 touchdowns either. But he had 1 touchdown on the day when it needed to be there. And he made a lot of throws under duress, I'll say that. And he did quite well. There were times, though, that he probably got a little antsy when he shouldn't have in the pocket. But, again, that's one thing that he needs to get better at and work on is playing under pressure, because that's where his completion percentages really go down, is when teams pressure the quarterback. And that doesn't necessarily mean blitz, but getting a 4-man rush and things of that nature. He's still got to be, again, poised in the pocket, grace under fire, and still run the show because they're going to keep coming after you if you're not going to be a great passer in those situations. They're just not going to let you play 7-on-7 and just drop 8 and rush 3 either. So, again, with that one. Elijah again, sixth. He had a great day, and I'm trying to figure out. I may have the wrong statistics up there, but again, he had a great day on the day with his deal. He probably didn't get as much targets as we would have wanted at times. I think he was targeted a total of 8 times, but he had some great plays on the outside on Saturday and the inside, beating some man coverage and stuff, showing his resilience and his effectiveness as a player, and someone that Indiana's got to get the ball to at every time they possibly can. But, the one big fade route that they hit, it's kind of more, I call it more like a fade stop, because Surratt sold the streak, and then he kind of throttled out of it, and Fernando threw the ball. The back shoulder throw, which Curtis Rourke was a master at that particular throw on anywhere on the field, and they hit it quite effectively a year ago. It hasn't been as utilized this year because I don't think Fernando throws it very well from that timing perspective. It does take a different throw, and you kind of, as a quarterback, you kind of have to get used to it. But it hasn't been utilized as much this year as it was previous year under Curtis, and that in some respects has shown where you would like to have it there for some times as well. So a big time game there for Mr. Surratt, as you saw in the opening with Mr. Fish on the call. That still gives there's something about Don Fisher and his radio voice and his command and how he calls a game, whether it's football or basketball, and those big moments, man, he's always ready for those big moments, whether it was Elijah on Saturday and Mendoza, or the big shot that upset Kentucky when they came to Bloomington as number 1. He just always seems to be ready to rock and roll. Roman Hemby had a really good day. 86 yards. He was probably their most effective runner, 5.7 yards on the day, average, 1 touch. Did he have a touch? I don't think he had a touchdown. I'm going to have to get on my statistician about that, because he did not have a touchdown. But where he really was effective yesterday, he ran hard, but his pass protection, he was vitally important in the passing game, in the protection aspect of things. He stood in there, and, when guys are running at you full speed because they got the cadence down pat, he was taking on guys that were coming from 5 yards deep with a full head of speed, and I thought he did really well in that regard with his pass protections on Saturday. EJ Williams had a good day in the sense that he had that one play was there down the sideline. He made that play. I still think there's got to be something again with him too for targets. He's too big of a dude on the outside not to, try to utilize him in different ways. He's 6'5", I think, and you got to find ways to, get the ball out to him again. And, those are the type of things that, I think there's a trust there that has grown between Cignetti and him over the last year. So I do think that's one thing they're going to look at here this off week is, in their passing game, are they giving enough targets in terms of spreading it out? We already mentioned, I think somebody also mentioned about the non-existence of the tight ends to a degree. I look at that and, where's Holden States in that equation, because he's another big body, especially to be utilized in situations where you can bang it to him, which Iowa did a lot of on Saturday. But again, Roman had a great day on the day, and I thought he played well in all the phases and stuff. I have not looked at the PFF stuff Didn't have a chance today with the grading and stuff like that. And here's the guy, Isaiah Jones, again, 8 total tackles, led the tackling, had a sack there with Kellen Wyatt, 3 yards in TFLs. He got his hands on that one punt that was deflected. And then, of course, I think he's one of those guys that's improved each and every week. He's been, out there and running around. He is very noticeable on Saturdays over the last couple weeks. He flashes quite a bit. And when Coach Haynes brings him on the blitz, he gets home pretty regularly. He does get home pretty regularly in that regard. So it's one of those things that I think he's done quite well. Another guy that's done well has been Tyreek Tucker. Man, he has really been felt on the defensive line over the last 2 weeks. He had 6 total tackles, 2 quarterback hurries on Saturday. The other kid in there that I could have thrown in as well up front was Daly, the kid they got from Kent State. He had a heck of a ball game as well. Very noticeable. I think he had a couple TFLs, if I'm not mistaken. But Tucker, Daly, Wyatt, Landino wasn't as effective this week as he was a week ago, but you got to be pretty happy where they're at with their defensive line. Those guys, I think, are even a step better than they were a year ago as a unit, and they've been able to get great pressure with just 4 guys rushing on the pass pro, and then they've done pretty darn good on the run game, getting pressure and during that setup as well. So Tyreek, I thought, played well. And then, of course, I said Lewis Moore, again, 7 total tackles on a day, 4 solos, and he had the 1 interception. That distraction of there's no more, so I think it's going to free him up to really focus on just getting out there and playing, the killing that he gets there. He's played quite, frankly, really good, even though he's had this eligibility thing hanging over his head for the last, probably 6 months. Am I not going to get it? Am I going to get booted or whatever? But he has played really good in the back half, and he has become a leader on defense. I think that is one thing that I've seen from him, and that's where his experience pays off. Here's a kid that played, was a top player here under Tom Allen. He left for Ole Miss, went down there in the SEC, played 1 year down there, but wanted to come back to Indiana and be a part of what was going on here. And I think he's, again, done quite well considering the circumstances that kid's been around the entire season with the eligibility issue with the NCAA. So that from myself's perspective, he's been really good in that regard. So I applaud him for the way he's played up to this point. And Indiana's going to need him. That's the thing. Indiana's going to need him and all those guys in the secondary. D'Angelo wasn't there. That meant, those guys had to step up. And Gandy was the guy that came in and played, I think, pretty well. But that's the thing. You're for guys that are behind somebody, you're 1 play away or 2 plays away from playing, and you better be ready, because when your number's called and you get out there, you don't want to know what down your leg. And that's the one thing I think you did a great job in that regard, stepping into that situation. And he was noticeable. He was running around. I saw him, and all that. So give him some props there, because, all of a sudden he steps into playing in a position that your best corner is occupying, is now out for this game. So again, real good on that end. Let's head over to the Coach Griff's video room here. Let me get it all set up and get some of this stuff tonight. I know I've been overly talkative here, so I apologize for being a little winded in my discussionary points tonight. But wanted to show a couple clips in this ball game as you know, kind of as we get going here with everything. Let's see here. Let's get over to our screen share. Let's see, everything's up. Okay. That's good. All righty. Okay, here's the first touchdown of the day after the interception. As you can see right there, kind of getting a two-shell look from the defense here inside the 20. You kind of get that look there, and you've got a backer up, which is right here, and probably going to do some things there. You got to be ready for a quarterback. And what Indiana ran here was they're going to run him on a corner route, which is a great route down there, because you can, as a quarterback, you can buy some time in your drop, but you're thinking throwing it to that pylon, and that's what they did. And again, good protection here by everybody. They don't bring a blitz. They stay in their kind of cover two-man, and they hit the corner route, which is exactly where the ball should have gone based upon coverage. This ball right now, in his mind, Mendoza's thinking, I'm going to throw it to the corner route because I got too high band coverage here. Just got to be careful this guy doesn't bait you. And he goes where he needs to take the ball on this, and makes a nice throw up and over and hits Omar in that in the end zone there. And all of a sudden we're all thinking, wow, that was easy. Let's keep on doing that. Well, that was a little difficult. Here's the 3rd and 2. Again, from the looks at it, I don't see any big blitzes coming. So they're just playing zone here on 3rd and down. You know, they're playing their version of the 4-2-5 concept, where outside here with this wide receiver out here, they're going to play man on him. And from this area here, that's the shell. They're going to play their cover 2 look there. So it's not too difficult there. But on that situation, to me here, I'm just kind of surprised that they didn't try to run the ball here. You got a 5-man box. This is a light box, 5 men in there, right? And you should be able to run the football effectively against a 5-man box. And so I was surprised on this one here. They threw it on 3rd and 2 because I think you had what you wanted. And what ends up happening, they rush 4. That Maxwell, I know this is the D lineman that's really good, goes right around our right guard, whose technique here is not very good at all. He's not getting off the ball. He's got his head down, which means head down, you're down, and next thing you know, they've got you covered, and it's a sack. But this one here, I think in Fernando's mind, he's looking out here to bang it in that regard. But in some respects, based upon their coverage here, he may have been better going up here, even though it was a 50-50 ball, taking your chance there. And that's where Curtis Rourke did a pretty good job of hitting those type of routes there. But unfortunately, sack. All right, here is another, just a 1st and 10, and they're bringing some heat. Whoops. Oh, my fingers are twitchy. Bringing some heat here. They're bringing a 6-man blitz. You can see him rolling to cover man free. And this is when he hits EJ down the sideline, does a great job. Maybe came off the bender too soon because he may have had Omar in the middle of the field, but this is a great throw, catch, concentration. You know, bringing a 6-man blitz, they go cover 1 and you make them pay for it. That's even better. Here's a 4th and 1 inches here. Indiana, they're in an unbalanced set. Okay. You got a tight end here. I think it's a tight end and maybe extra tackle, but you've got a lot of bodies over here. But darn it, they got a ton of bodies here. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 bodies in there. So you are definitely one-on-one on the outside. This, to me, either they have to couple this with an RPO, which I thought they did, but according to Sig's presser after the game, they did not. So in this instance right here, to me, take the time out if they're going to go for it here and get right, because you're not going to run the ball against 9 guys up here. But here's the other thing. You're up 7-3. The ball is on the 25-yard line, 26-yard line. Take the points here. You're on the road. You're on the road against a very good defense, and you got a chance to get points. You better get points because you don't know what's going to happen. But if you're going to go for it, it's got to be betterly executed than what they ran here. I mean, they ran the ball into a 9-man front, and I don't care what they do here. It's just not going to work in that regard. So unless you do some type of quarterback run where you get a +1 on it. But, what happens is they're basically shooting the gaps, and this DB shoots it, beats the guard, and next thing you know, he's tackling the back 3 yards deep and not even close to that, And you can see, we had seen this before, and this is how good they are defensively, Phil. His assignment's the quarterback. So on runs, he's scraping hard over the top here to get that, So again, there's so many opportunities out here to go play ball, and let's go win one-on-one outside here. But, that one to me didn't make much sense. I think you got to take the points in that respect. Big run by Hemby here. I thought he did well. I'm going to try to get a couple things here. Whoops, I think. Maybe not. Let's see. Where's the other one down here? Whoops, I'm sorry. I didn't want to. Okay. This is the last drive here, 13-13. And they're bringing the house again here. This is where Hemby steps up and takes one for the team. He does a pretty good job there just getting in his way. But it's enough. It's enough for Fernando to get the ball off. But this is the one that this guy hits his arm right there, and it sails. And that's one that he got picked, and this is the one they returned for such a big play, and they missed that field goal. So that one was, tough call for that situation there. And then this is the one that we showed earlier. They're going to max blitz. Now, what they did, which they hadn't done all day, so they're going to bring 8. So you got man, but you can see how deep these guys are off the ball. And this is where the slant route just eats this coverage up, or a double move would eat this up. But again, Indiana not, keeping the tight end in, kind of sliding their protection here to get things protected, and they do a great job of it to by the time he can get it and misangled and 88 out the gate. From that standpoint. Oh, you can't. Oh, I'm sorry. I can see it. Oh, what a dummy. I apologize. What an idiot. You can see I was involved with it. What I was saying here is you got 8 men coming. They're coming. There's 0 blitz in it. I'm sure. Can you see it now? I'm showing it. Yes or no? Should have a thumbs up in there. But these guys are way off. And the right call's the slant, which they had on, or a double move. So hopefully you guys can see this now. And Indiana keeps the guy in, and they do 7-man protection. And that one was the pick. And then they come back this one now. They had seen it. And now same thing here. You got a lot of bodies getting ready to light you up, and they're playing zero coverage. So, again, running this type of route, you got your chance here to go about anywhere. And even if you wanted to double move it like that and then run a slant and go, which we call sluggo, would have been a great call too. But again, going back to their bread and butter, Indiana does a great job of blocking, and they get it done. And Surratt makes the play when he has an opportunity to make the play. So that was a huge play in the game, of course. Defensively speaking, we'll go over a couple of things here, and then we'll finish up with a couple of things. But again, they mixed up things pretty well. This is kind of like a little tight end screen that they covered well. That was a great play there by Hardy. He kind of sniffs it out, does a great job, and they lose yardage. This is just a nice throw. They go one-on-one and run a kind of a shake, what we call a shake route up there. But you can see they're keeping a lot of bodies in there protecting because they're fearful of Indiana blitzing on first down. And they do a great job of getting the protection right and doing what they needed to do. This was one of their big runs of the day that they split Indiana on. Indiana is in an over front, and they're bringing two guys. So you got a guy here and a guy here, and he's kind of coming up field. This really shouldn't go the way it's going, but it does because the backer gets caught up in there. Jones does, and he's not able to make the tackle, and then big time play down the sideline for them. So here's the touchdown that they got. I still don't think he got in here. I don't know how this official that's coming in to make a call that he's in can actually see that he's in because he was laying behind the line. And that one to me never made sense in that respect. Here's one of their big pass plays. This is that, again, screen that they were running, and they do a good job of executing. It's just kind of a hide screen. And again, Tim Lester, their offensive coordinator, same thing. This is a nice play against Indiana's what I call the Bear 4-6. They're trying to get some pressure here. It's second and long. Bryant's going to bring a little pressure. And boom, they get it to that Weejet kid. Weejet, I think that's how you pronounce his name. But this dude is so fast. Indiana covered it pretty well for the better part of the day. And again, I thought Indiana defensively, again, played pretty darn well against that Iowa defense for the day, and really flew around and stuff of that nature. So give Indiana's defense a ton of credit there. And let's see, I got a couple things I wanted to. Okay, this is what I want right here. Whoops. Let's see if I can. This is what I wanted to show you. This is some of the things we talked about on Thursday. Stay on schedule, avoid negative plays. I don't think they did that well enough on Saturday. I don't think they really exploited the pass defense for Iowa. Play actions, RPOs, crossers, and such. Just don't think they did that very well. I do think they played to their strengths in the run game. I don't think they did enough of pace and tempo. They were kind of in that methodical mindset. And I do think they did get to the aggressive and targeted play calling more so in the second half in that regard. But you can see Indiana overall in that game was just ugly. I mean, it just was ugly, and part of it was because of what Iowa was doing. You know, they were throwing everything but the kitchen sinks at Indiana, and it's just, you know, you get that one at Kinnick Stadium is a tough place to play, and it showed that afternoon that Iowa had a pretty good plan, and they're a team that I do think they're going to beat people. I just think they're too good of a team. I don't know where Gronowski is. I didn't see if he's hurt. I know he got hurt there at the end, but we'll find out. But I do think Iowa's good. I do think they'll beat a top tier program because of just where they play, and that defense is so darn good, you know, in that regard. So, yeah, you did. You did see the kitchen sink, Brian. PK, yeah, you could say that. I don't disagree with that in that regard, because I do think they left some plays that they could have had if they would have taken some shots. You know, max protect it, take the one-on-ones on the outside and get it done. I do think they got to really evaluate, though, on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. You got to have an out for the quarterback. You just can't say call it and run it, and you just come up and there's a 9-man box, and you know, you don't have an answer. You know, in that situation there, man, you got 9-man box. Fernando's got to have the green light to change it there and go to the outside with a throw, or in that situation, call the timeout. But I do think there were some coaching head scratchers a little bit. The one play, that one where I thought they should have taken points. They had the one where Iowa was offsides and Fernando was that big scramble where he got taken out on the sideline. And, you know, Indiana responded the way Indiana should have on the sideline there. And I was almost to the point where I would have wanted to challenge the spot there, because I almost think he got the first down on the scramble. But Indiana, it was 3rd and 15. They decide to decline the penalty, take the one to set up a 4th and 1, which to me was a little bit of a head scratcher. And I get it. You're going to set up a 4th one, because if you go back in 3rd and 15 and it doesn't come to fruition, and you know, I just think in that situation there, I'm not sure I wouldn't have declined that penalty. I think I'd take it and take 2 to get the first down if that's your mindset. But they go for it there and they get stuffed. I mean, it was just one of those days where 4th down was not good to Indiana. And I do think they got to look at situations where they're inside that red zone against a tough opponent like Iowa, a good defense. I do think you got to kick it there and take the points. And because that would have changed, could potentially change the whole complexion of the game at that point. You know, it puts them up a true full score in that regard at the time, because I think it was 10-7. So anyway, enough of me talking. I appreciate you guys hanging in there tonight. Did get a little winded here and there, but, you know, I'm very appreciative of the guys that come in each and every week and participate in the discussion, and know that I thoroughly appreciate each and every one of you. We will be back Thursday, even though there's no game. We'll come back on Thursday. I'm going to talk about some things about what do you do during the off week, and maybe some other examples of things that I'm seeing that maybe has to be corrected or looked at from a broader perspective on Thursday. But join me back here Thursday at 7:30. But until then, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and you have been watching the Hoosier Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com. Good night, everybody.